Hey, I want to quickly explain my BNB trade. So, a lot of people on Twitter, the the group got in down here, so we got a lower entry for members of the group. Then I released a trade later on up on Twitter for everybody else to get into, or to consider at least. It was only 1.6% at risk. Um, but I wanted to explain because a lot of people were asking about this trade. So I knew the BNB was going to have a substantial move based on prior trading, everything I've been seeing on this coin. I've been in several breakout plays on BNB for a while, so I was very bullish on a potential big move. I was just worried about getting to the ideal entry point. So we had corrected a little bit. We were sitting at the EMAs. We originally broke out from my original entry, which was really nice, and then we started correcting and coming back down. We eventually settled right at the EMAs, which are my major Ichima supports. My Ichima model includes the EMAs and then the Ichimoku cloud for various types of dynamic support or resistance, depending on what else is happening. We were sitting right there. I thought that would have been an ideal entry. I put that out on Twitter. We ended up correcting, which you'll see in a second, and that trade got stopped out. Then we corrected down to the next base support, which was the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud. And as soon as we got support at the bottom of that correction, I knew that was the bottom. The bottom was in on this move, and I know that because of my Ichima model. After we bounced off of that support, we started moving back up, and I knew the ideal entry was going to be the top of the cloud where we started range trading. That's when I released this trade. So let me play it back so you guys can see. We were moving down after correcting a little bit. We started settling right at the EMAs, and I told everybody this is an ideal time to get in. And then sure enough, we corrected again, and I got stopped out. But you'll see this correction down, it stopped perfectly at my Ichima support. So here we see it start to dip down. You'll see in a second. Looks like it's going to break out, but then nope, we drop right down. At first I was excited. I thought the call was going well. Nope, wasn't. Came back down, stopped out the original trade. As soon as we bounced off the bottom of the cloud, and we were range trading right around the top, I told everybody this is the time to get back in, and it's really low risk, and then look what happens. Bam, huge breakout. These are hourly candles, so you can see how explosive of a move that is. I knew it was going to be a big move, didn't know exactly how big. Very happy with how it worked out, obviously. Depending on where you sold, you could have made 20% profit or more. If you bought in down at my original entry, that was down here, at the top, it was over 20%. But for the entry that I released, not in the group, but the Twitter trade I released, at its most was up like 17, a little over 17%, which is great. And I think right now it's right around my 14.5% stop loss, so I think you'd be up about 11.5% if you're holding right now. If you already sold, great, that's fine. But if you haven't sold and you're still holding it, I think we have room for another move. What's important to illustrate is how my Ichima model worked and how I came up with the trade to begin with, but also I'm not worried about the size of the breakout. I'm not worried about how much profit I could potentially make. What I'm worried about is the risk. And take a look at this. The original trade I put out in the group. Let me stop the playback here. The original trade I released in the group down here was 2.75% risk, more or less. And we had a really nice breakout from there and then corrected slightly and then we moved up again. Now this entry here was only 1.6%, which means if you put $10,000 into this trade when I released it on Twitter, you would have only risked $160. If this failed and we got stopped out, you would have lost $160. But based on this breakout, at the top at least, this would have given you, on a $10,000 trade, almost $1,800 profit. Now, for my original entry, it was over $2,000 profit. But you can see profits are relevant. All I was worried about was that risk. $160 risk is nothing because all you need is a couple percent breakout. Not only did you outplay your risk, not only did you make more than you would have lost, but you have potential to make a hell of a lot more beyond that. I just got stopped out at 14.5% profit here, but I'm still in with a portion of my position, and look where I am. I'm right below all of my Ichima supports. So we just bounced off the 55 again, another one of my Ichima supports. It's looking really good for that next impulse up. We're going to have to see if we hold at the 55 or if we come down and test the 99 in the top of the cloud. I actually think we might hold. This does form a nice little corrective wave, so I'm going to see how that plays out. But the takeaway here is spotting the ideal entries and focusing on risk, right? That's what I want everybody to understand. That's what I want to illustrate. Both times I put out a trade on BNB, it was because it was a low-risk entry sitting on top of support with a lot of potential. I was expecting a big move, and I got a big move. So the next time I see a trade setup like this, I know this has reinforced my strategy. I know what to look for, and if I see the same setup talking to me, I'm going to be entering, and I'm going to put in just as much as I put into this trade, which was quite a hefty amount. I ended up doing very well on this trade, so I'm happy with how it turned out, but I am still holding about half of my position. I have 8.5% profit locked in and guaranteed if it does correct down that far, but I don't think it will. I think it's going to hold and move up again as long as BTC holds.